Come and join us for second breakfast. Just the two of us. Come and join us. Don't get it. Don't be away. Just be anytime. Second breakfast. It's on the second breakfast. Come and join us for second breakfast. Come and join us. Second breakfast. Wanna dare, be there, be aware. The second breakfast. Morning. I got the mic on. Yes, I do. Welcome to Second Breakfast, a stream of consciousness that fills part of the gap between the no answer period and Blazing Cat for Fridays, which will be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We're streaming on three platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. So please give us a like, thumbs up, follow, share, subscribe. Most of all, the chat is up across all three platforms. So please feel free to ask anything. Comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. This veteran appreciates your support. Please visit my channels and share. And I hope you're having a wonderful morning and are ready to face the day with love and hope of your fellow man. I always like to start each and every day with thanking my higher power for my life, for my health, and for my wealth. When I talk about wealth, I mean more about spiritual wealth and wealth that I have with the love of my fellow man. I also need next to pray for others, those I love and those that I don't, and ask my higher power for help to love those that I don't, so that I can better deal with humanity and every day, which goes into my third thing that I ask my higher power for, which is help to get through the day, just today. And I usually finish that off with my favorite prayers. For me, that being the Lord's Prayer and the Serenity Prayer. So by starting your day by connecting with your higher power, it sets the tone for your day. And by asking help to get through your day, you will be surprised metaphors are used to review. I see that I'm still getting a little choppy when I see people just cranking itself up for no reason this morning. I'm looking at it right now, it's just going right up in usage for no reason whatsoever, and making me look a little choppy for no reason whatsoever. I don't know what's going on here. All right, well, let's get on with the show. So today's topic of the show is, let's bring up my thumbnail. Yes, Jamil Jivani. How is Jamil Jivani doing? Why is he in the news? And what's all the jabber going on about him? Well, if you haven't been following, this is the reason why Jamil has been uh, sending all the far lefties into a flutter.
And I want to explain to you, the Canadian people, exactly why, because you're probably going to hear about it. I'm going to Washington because I want to help Prime Minister Mark Carney be successful in negotiating a trade deal with the United States. Now, that might sound counterintuitive because I am a principled conservative. He is our liberal prime minister. But the reality is that this is not a partisan issue. CUSMA and trade with the United States is so important to the Canadian economy and to our future as an independent, self-reliant nation that conservatives and liberals don't need to fight over this at all. In fact, we need to work together. The leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, has said as much. He has offered help from conservatives to the Liberal government on this issue, and I'm acting on that. In my opinion, this is not about posturing or politics. This is about business and workers. This is about unions and entrepreneurs. This is about whether we have a growing economy with stability for investment and opportunity for our young people, or whether our economy is perpetually in a state of uncertainty. I am kind of sick and tired of the politics on this issue. I'm sick and tired of the posturing and the virtue signaling. I'm sick and tired of people being worried about what someone's going to call you on Facebook or on social media comments, what the media might say. The reality is that there are people suffering right now in our country because of the state of our economy. And inasmuch as we want Canada to be as strong and independent as possible, the reality is that 3/4 of our exports go to the United States. And if we want an economy that is good for our young people, if we want an economy that supports public services for seniors in our communities, we've got to work with the Americans. There are people who've been running around this country for over a year now, talking about their elbows, flapping about. I just don't find that impressive. I don't find it serious. I take this issue seriously. And as a guy who went to law school in the United States and has a strong network there, I think I have something to offer to help build bridges of communication between our two countries, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm alarmed when I see things like the talking about China and communist governments and doing more business with them. I get alarmed when I see announcements of electric vehicles now being imported into Canada while we have a crisis in our auto industry. I get alarmed in my home community when I see museums in Oshawa, like the Tank Museum or the Auto Museum, offering free admission to GM employees to do everything they can to just stand in solidarity with people whose lives have been turned upside down because of the economic uncertainty, the tariffs, and the lack of a good trade relationship with our biggest trading partner. So yeah, I say this to you knowing what's about to come my way. I know what all the critics are going to say, and I know what all the frothing, elbow-waving, anti-American activists are about to say about me. But I just don't care. I care more about you. I care more about the Canadian people, the people who want a future in this country and know that we need serious leadership, the people who believe that you elect people to do what's right and to stand up for you and fight for you above any kind of partisanship. I took this job because I thought there was important work that needed to be done in our country. And I thought that on behalf of the great people of Bowmanville, Oshawa North, I would have a chance to do some great work. And that's my motivation. So, no matter what you hear, no matter what they say, I just want you to hear directly from me. I think you deserve good leadership in this country. And I think you deserve people who are going to cut through all the noise, cut through all the posturing and the virtue signaling, and just try to deliver something good for you and your kids. And to me, that's what a trade deal with the United States promises. It promises more stability so that we can grow our economy and that our country can be strong and awesome and live up to its enormous potential. And I think that's what we all want. And that's why I'm going to Washington, D.C. Thanks for listening.
And he was right. The far lefties, the leftoids. Oh, sorry about that. The far lefties and leftoids have been losing their minds. They've been calling him a traitor. They've been calling for him to be arrested. It's insane. These are the same people that probably called for the those who refused to get the injection to be arrested as well and thrown in jail for being a safety hazard. All those same people still remaining quiet about, let's see, vaccine injury data. Let's hide that 15 years and let's promise to go to the courts to see if we can use violence to suppress peaceful protest again. All these lefties that are going after Jamil are the same National Socialists who would willingly use violence against their own citizens just so that their talking points can be primary and not other people. And that's why they bloody hate him. But it's a brilliant move by the conservatives in a sense because even if he doesn't get a deal, it shows that communication with the US is possible on a friendly narrative. Something that the liberals don't want the Canadians to know because in order for the liberals to get reelected, they have to continue their campaign of fear and hatred, like they did last time, like they did the time before that. Always finding someone to demonize, someone to hate, someone to direct everyone's hate towards them. Just like the Nazis did in the 1930s, right? Hate this person because of that, hate that person because of this. And because you hate these people, that's the reason why you should elect me, because those people need to be hated. And nobody hates those people more than us, right? Join me in our hate so that we can hate him and hate them so that we can all rule the country together for a better future, blah, 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 blah. This is what the left has been selling now constantly. Hatred of the other for them to be elected. They can't engage with anyone else, and which is why they refuse to engage with the United States for trade, even though they promised that they would. So this embarrasses the hell out of them. Now, who is Jamil Jivani? Well, again, Wikipedia, don't take everything they say as the truth because Wikipedia has been uberly manipulated by the far left minded for so many years that it being used as an actual encyclopedia is a bit of a joke. But there's a lot of data in here that is mostly correct, so we'll go through it. Jamil Javani, born 24, 1987. Well, 3 years after I joined the military. The Member of Parliament for Bowmanville, Oshawa North. Now, Conservative Jivani was first elected representative in Durham in a 2024 by-election, triggering the resignation of former Conservative leader and leader of the official opposition, Aaron O'Toole, probably the worst Conservative leader ever, ever. He wasn't really a Conservative. He was more progressive than Conservative. In fact, he was a red Tory. In fact, he was more of a liberal in a blue suit. Now you'll notice here Bowmanville, Oshawa North, and Durham. Well, Durham was the first place that he was actually elected into. Bowmanville, Oshawa North was after the redistricting that happened before the last election. The same redistricting that had the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, lose his seat in Carleton because of redistricting. Here, I'll show you down here the poll numbers. Go all the way down. Now, here we have Durham in March 4th, 2024 in the by-election. And you can see here Jamil handily wins the riding with, wow, 11,000 votes more, right? And 57.44 of the vote. Now, after redistricting, what happened? Ooh, look at the vote count. It was a close one. Very close. Jamil won by 35,232, and the Liberal came in close behind at 32,214. That's a very, very narrow margin. What is that? 18 votes? Wow. That's that's a recount. That's recount territory right there. Now let's look at what happened in the last election. New Democrats, they lost 15% of the vote that they normally get in that area. That's because the Liberals stole a bunch of these votes because of their fear mongering, right? Oh, we have to beat Trump. Only we can beat Trump, and you have to join us to beat Trump because the other parties are too weak to beat Trump. In fact, the conservatives, they're all like Trump. They're all MAGA. You can't vote for them. And so that's how they managed to influence these numbers here, along with the redistricting. But we know that the next election, well, the New Democrats have learned that the Liberals aren't really New Democrats. And they're not following through on the New Democrat ideals. So a lot of this vote is going to shrink away. And of course, the other aspect is that the Liberals, well, they're responsible for so much misery that this vote share is only bound to go down, unless, of course, they follow in Spain's footsteps and start giving citizenship to the millions of migrants that they've allowed to come into the country that apparently they have no idea where they are. Let's go back up and finish up our little write up here on Jamil. Now, he previously worked as a special advisor to the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, and was appointed as the advocate for community opportunities and to the Premier's Council on Equality and Opportunity. Before entering politics, Jivani studied law at Yale University, where he met Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. In fact, they were rather close friends, apparently. He practiced corporate law at Torrey's LLP, later worked as a community police relations activist, as a contributor for Post Media, and hosted a radio show for CFRB News Talk 1010. And of course, this is just the bottom line up front, as they call it, the bluff. There's more details here specifically, but let's go into his early life. Now, he was born in Toronto to a Kenyan Muslim father and a British mother of Scottish and Irish descent. His father was adopted and raised by a Muslim Indian family, hence the Indian surname, and runs a restaurant in Mexico. And it says here citation needed, so that statement may or may not be true. He grew up with his two sisters, raised by their mother in Ontario's city of Brampton. Giovanni also has two stepbrothers through his father's side. After attending Fletcher's Creek Senior Public School, then Mississauga's Gordon Graydon Memorial Secondary School, Giovanni attended Humber College and York University. In 2013, he earned his Juris Doctor from Yale Law School. Before attending law school, Giovanni worked as a dishwasher and line cook in local Toronto area restaurants. So he was going to Yale when I was in Afghanistan. Hmm. Giovanni also interned at the office of Cory Booker, the then mayor of Newark, and current Democratic senior United States Senator from New Jersey. Giovanni later revealed in 2020 that for a few years after law school, he was a card carrying member of the Liberal Party of Canada. And if you read down further, when he discovers that, well, like most people, when you start growing up and you get older, you realize that liberal values are nice to have when young, you're a young gun full of cum and you have no idea what the hell you're doing in life. But then as you start realizing that, oh, most of this liberalism runs on other people's money and no accountability and never saying you're sorry for having screwed up. Apparently, those are liberal values. So I guess that didn't sit too well with Giovanni. And normally, most common sense people, he migrated towards the Conservative Party because their ideals and values more closely align with reality, not National Socialism or communism. So as you can see, he was working both in the Democrat and the Republican side uh, in the United States for his connections. So when he says he's going down there, talk to people he knows, apparently it's not just his Republican friends. He has a friend in Cory Booker, a Democrat senator. It's interesting. And as for the data for Bowman, Oshawa North, a simple search on Google can get you that information. And yeah, so a lot of people, when they said that Pierre Poilievre lost his other seat, people don't realize that there was the same kind of stupidity going on in his writing with the amalgamation of various areas. And of course, in addition, Pierre Follier was also subjected to the longest ballot initiative, for which, it was like pulling teeth out of Elections Canada to get them to deal with this as an illegal measure. In fact, they had to be brought to committee and asked these particular questions. Then they started taking it seriously. But until then, no, they didn't. Now, yesterday, we covered the fact that the Liberals have appointed a new person to run Elections Canada for the upcoming election, and they're from BC, who just held a rather questionable series of elections, having their elections people doing some rather questionable things with ballot boxes. It's not right to be doing that in a Western Democrat society. So there's a few clips here from CBC from a recent interview that Jivani made.
Michael Ma crossed the floor. Like most workplaces, we had a secret Santa, and so everyone got assigned a name. I purchased my gift for my dear friend Mel Arnold, and when we were all giving out gifts, I didn't have one given to me, and I thought, wow, maybe someone forgot. No judgment. And then when Michael Ma crossed the floor, I wondered, maybe I didn't get a gift because he decided not to give one. And maybe he decided to give it to a Liberal instead. So I did inquire as to who was supposed to be my secret Santa, and it turns out it was Michael Ma. And, like most workplaces, we had a secret Santa, and so everyone got assigned a name.
Right. Put that on pause. So I don't know if a lot of people knew that on on the left or even at all. The little things that Michael Ma, who crossed the floor over to Liberals, did just before he left. He was literally at a Christmas party the night before, took a Secret Santa gift, never brought one of his own, and then the next day walked over across the aisle. What a bit of a douche, eh? So let's listen to this person here on mainstream media and let's see what they say.
Vice President J.D. Vance says he could help restart trade talks with the United States. Jamil Jivani is the MP for Bowmanville, Oshawa North in Ontario, and he sat down last week for an exclusive interview with the CBC's Kate McKenna. Here's part of that.
If my party were in power and I could actually reach out to people in Washington and say, okay, can we try to resolve some of this trade dispute or get a deal going, there's a role for me to play. With the Liberal Party in power, there's not an obvious way for me to inject myself into that conversation. Now, I will say I have offered Mark Carney to help, and I really do believe I could help. I would love it if Mark Carney said to me, look, we need a multi-partisan, all hands on deck approach. Please go down to Washington. Here's the strategy and approach we're taking. See what you can do to help. I would love it if he asked me to do that. But out of respect for him as Prime Minister, I don't want to get involved. And frankly, we saw with the whole Doug Ford commercial debacle, what happens when there's not a good strategy in place that is in the best interest of the country. Mark Carney is getting a new ambassador named. Maybe that means a new strategy. Maybe that means there's a way that I can help. And, my constituents in Bowmanville, Oshawa North would like me to do that. But at the end of the day, the Prime Minister has to make that decision, not me. So I would love to be able to talk to JD about how we can make things better for our economy. But I don't want to get involved in what Mark Carney's up to, and unless he tells me that's helpful to him.
The Liberals do not want this resolved. They need to keep Boogeyman alive because they don't have anything to run on. So they have to run on a campaign of fear. Now, Jamil says here, thousands of Canadians have signed my letter telling the Prime Minister to act on the crisis facing young men. I'll be delivering it to the Prime Minister in 10 days. This restorethenorth.ca, which is a campaign that Jamil has, because he's not just content with raking in his MP salary. He actually is an activist. He actually wants to improve Canadian society. He actually wants this country to do better, which is why he's going down to talk to his friends, which apparently Liberals don't have any friends down in the States. Maybe that's why they can't get a deal, because they're really not a friendly sort, are they? We've seen how Liberals have reacted and have acted over the past 11 years. It's their way or the highway. And if you don't listen to them, they will use violence to get their way. They will use every tool that at their disposability as a state power to basically coerce you into doing whatever the hell they want you to do. And if you question it, ooh, they will also use the power of the state to crush you in every single way that they can. So that's why you don't see any liberals running uh, little programs like this on the side to help their communities because they're too busy making themselves rich and their friends rich and getting in on the grift, while at the same time ensuring that they are demonizing people rather than working with them. And I can honestly say that about my own Liberal MP, because they have not done anything at all for our local community other than enrich themselves. Let's listen to what Jamil has to say about his Restore the North campaign.
Access to. Right now, the federal government is greatly influenced by what I refer to as a victimhood hierarchy. So instead of assessing where citizens, regardless of their identity, need help, support, empowerment, it is often a skewed sense of reality that shapes public policy. To give you a very practical example of what I mean, the Senate of Canada, the National Bank of Canada, Movember Canada, the Canadian Mental Health Foundation, all have published reports in recent months and years outlining the tragic situation that very many young men find themselves in, whether it's related to opioid addiction, unemployment, homelessness, victims of crime, high school graduation rates. There's overwhelming statistical evidence that young men in our country need help. The federal government just put out a budget that had the largest deficit in Canadian history, $80 billion deficit. And in that high deficit budget, not a single plan, strategy, targeted initiative to help young men in our country. I've written an open letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney, which certainly encourage anybody who would like to sign it, you're welcome to. And I wrote this letter particularly showing him the data that the federal government has access to and requesting his help in trying to do something about this. To me, that's an example of what Restoring the North is, which is that we value the citizenship of our people as our common bond, and that we evaluate public policy on the basis that every citizen is equal, and therefore their struggles must be taken seriously by their government that they pay taxes to.
Jamil has hit the nub of it. I've said it often enough. The Liberals work on a victim-oppressor narrative. There's always a victim and there's always an oppressor. And if there isn't, well, obviously the Liberals aren't doing their job well enough in creating division in society. So that's why in cultural Marxism, where they use Hegelian deconstructionism, in order to destroy the concept of the society that you're living in, you have to ensure that everyone feels afraid. They always have to feel afraid. They always have to feel oppressed. And there always has to be a boogeyman that they have to point to, right? So that's why in school, they've been constantly hammering kids with the fear of climate change. That's why they've been hammering them with the fear of anyone else who disagrees with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is only means that some people are more equal than others, which is the other hypocritical aspect of cultural Marxism and the far left ideology that constantly virtue signals over cultural Marxist ideas, but never addresses the fact they are creating victims or that they are being bigoted themselves. Now, here's that picture of Jamil Jivani with J.D. Vance back in the college days. Oh, look, there's a picture of Spock in the back. This must be at a pub on the campus. And yeah, so that's that. But Jamil on his site has a good description of where he's coming from, right at the very top. So let's go up to Jamil here, to his actual site, and we'll just listen to him when he's talking about growing up in a fatherless home, so that you can get a complete understanding of where Jamil is coming from.
I believe fathers are the first line of defense for a lot of kids who are dealing with challenges in their lives. And I experienced that myself growing up without my dad for much of my life. And I don't say that to throw shade at my father. I love him, but we have to be real about the circumstances that we find ourselves in. I'll tell you a story to kind of explain what I mean. One day when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I was walking home from school, and I walked by one of my friend's houses, and his name's David. He was only 3 years older than me, but when you're a kid, 3 years feels like a lot of time. And he stopped me because I had a hole in my shorts, and he asked me, "Jamil, why do you have a hole in your shorts?" And I explained, well, I was jumping over a fence, going somewhere I wasn't supposed to be going, and there was a hole in my shorts because it got caught on the top of the fence. And he just looked at me and was like, "Why are you jumping over fences? And why are you getting into trouble? And why are you going places you're not supposed to be? And why are you walking around with a hole in your shorts?" And when I was a kid, I had people like David in my life who would encourage me to be doing the right things. But I also had a lot of people in my life who were encouraging me to not be doing the right things, including the guys that I was jumping over that fence with. You see, for a lot of boys growing up, you have those competing influences, positive and negative. And your dad, if you have one at home, can be kind of the tiebreaker, the regulator, the one who shows you who you should be listening to and who you shouldn't be. But if you grow up like I did, where you don't have that person at home, the world can have all kind of different impacts on you. Well, I believe that on Father's Day, just like every other day, we should be able to recognize that dads matter, that dads are important to a healthy society, a strong and functional country. And when Father's Day comes around, we should be able to say that and celebrate it, to honor the fathers across this country for the important role that they play, and also to highlight where families that are struggling, they may be on the brink of breakdown, where fathers might not even know whether they can still be in their kids' lives, unsure of whether they can have that positive impact, where these families and where these men can go and get the help that they need. Well, speaking as a person who spent most of my life wanting my dad around and feeling a void in my heart because I didn't have him, I think every dad should know you are needed. And sometimes it might not feel that way. Sometimes you might not get the thank you, or sometimes you might not get that encouragement. But I can assure you that being there, being supportive, being involved has an incredible impact on your children. And I hope you will never give up, because your kids need you, family needs you, community needs you, and our country needs you. You are leaders, and we need leaders. No, I don't think we do enough to promote and champion fatherhood, in part because of the political correctness that gets in the way of even having these conversations. I think a part of the reality we find ourselves in, which is, if we know that strong and healthy families, strong and healthy fathers are an important part to a strong and healthy country, we should be having policies that are aimed at building an economy that enables and empowers families. I would like to see Father's Day be a bigger deal. I want to see Father's Day not just be a way that we get to honor our individual fathers, in our personal lives, but also as a rallying call for building the kind of society that supports fathers and families. I think that is what we all know deep down inside is important to us. It's about relationships and the people we love. And we need to make sure that that is part of what we expect of leaders in this country, is that being a leader in Canada means that you want to strengthen and empower families. And I believe Father's Day, just like Mother's Day, should be a rallying call around those values. I also want every dad out there to know how important and special they are, because they are. So when I say dads matter, I really mean it.
Well, that should give you an insight into who Jamil Jivani is, what all the jabber is about regarding his apparent treasonous activities going down the United States. against all the people who apparently allow Trump to live rent-free in their brains, the people who have been basically mentally manipulated into becoming fear-controlled puppets. These are all the same people going after Jamil, rather than holding the prime minister to account for failing to meet his promise of being the only person who could get a deal with Trump. Only turned around and said, who cares? I'll get to it when I get to it. But then as soon as Jamil goes down south, ooh, the panic is on. Oh my, we might lose our boogeyman, think the liberals, if somehow the conservatives were to humanize Americans. Imagine that. No, liberals have to continue to demonize something, anyone else, in order to distract from their own ongoing failures and misery that they are causing Canadians. Thank you so much for coming this morning. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock is Blazing Cat for Fridays. And for that, of course, we will just go with this outgoing video. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
I am programmed to destroy those life forms which are imperfect. What is music?